Happy Thursday. So I know I told you guys I would come to you at 12:40 and it's 9:55. I apologize for coming early. My fantastic little niece is coming up this afternoon to see me, so I thought I would get it in early. So sorry for the inconvenience. So the poll went out, and for some reason Facebook wouldn't let me have more than two options on the poll. I apologize. And recreating your life is the one that got 2 votes. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Uh, I know I'm not like an expert on anything or everything, sorry. But at 38, I've lived a lot of life and done a lot of cool things and a lot of things and experienced a lot of things. So anything from my experience that can help you guys out, I definitely want to offer up. So know that I'm not coming to you as like the expert on life. I come to you as a journeyer on life, and just here's kind of my experience, and here's what's worked for me and what has not worked for me. So if it helps you, awesome. So recreating life. Here's kind of why I feel like I wanted to talk about this. Most of you know me. I got married at 25, and I lived in Oregon for a year, and I lived in Colorado for almost 10 years. And I loved living out of state and experiencing life from another perspective. I had an awful marriage. It was a very unhealthy relationship. We brought out the worst in each other every day, and it was super toxic. And I was miserable. I hated being married. I hated my job. I hated life because I was so miserable. And I spent so long living that way that the longer I lived in my misery, the more poor choices I started to make just to alleviate for a moment feeling bad about life and being miserable. And so I came to a point where I just had to recreate my life. I have one life, and I didn't want to. Actually, the moment was one of my friends looked me in the eyes and was like, Kim, the next 9 years are going to look just like the last 9 years if you don't change something. Are you okay with that? And I wanted to throw up because I was like, no, I cannot live another 9 years like this last 9 years. And that was my kind of like aha moment, was like, nothing's going to change if you don't change. And when he told me that, I set myself on a path to change my life. It was overwhelming. I lived in a state far away from my family, and I was the breadwinner, and nobody in my family ever got a divorce. So the idea of quitting my job, relocating, divorcing my husband, starting all over was way too overwhelming. It paralyzed me. And one of my really good friends, Allison, was like, Kim, just take a 3-month break, right? Like, you guys separate for 3 months, and at the end of 3 months, like, if you miss each other, then you can get back together. And at the end of 3 months, if you don't miss each other, then you know that marriage is done and you can move on. And it felt doable, right? Like, it didn't feel like I was just dismantling my life. It felt like, all right, I'm putting a pause button on my life. I can do that. That feels manageable. So I did. And at the end of 3 months, we decided that relationship was not for us. And I relocated to Oklahoma, and I was bound and determined to just create a new life. I had a new chance, a blank slate. But fear kind of got the best of me, and I went back into higher ed because it was comfortable, and I knew, it was comfortable. And within a week, I hated it. I knew I didn't like it. I didn't like it when I was in it. So why am I back in it? And I was there for several months, and there was a big long story. My supervisor was under investigation. And I showed up to work one day, and I found myself once again in that miserable life mindset. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. And all the social norms that told me, Kim, you have to have another job before you quit your job. Kim, you have to give a 2-week notice before you quit your job. Kim, you can't just go turn your letter of resignation in and without telling your boss you're quitting. All those things that had just, all these social norms that my entire life I've tried to adhere to because that was the right thing to do and that was what I was supposed to do. At that moment, I said, nope, no longer. So I secretly packed all my stuff up. I moved it into the car and I wrote up a letter of resignation. I took it straight up to HR, got in my car, and I left. I didn't tell her I was quitting. I didn't tell her I was leaving. There was 2 of us. She had 2 employees, and I'm not for sure by the end of the day when she figured out she no longer had employees. Which I don't suggest everyone doing that, but it was such a defining moment in my life because I had bucked all the social norms and I was okay. And I felt so empowered and proud of myself for standing up for what Kim wanted and taking care of Kim instead of looking out for other people and not hurting their feelings. And it was just a game changer for me. It was like, you know what? Like, the world isn't this big bad place and people are for me. And, you can do things your way and not totally screw your life up. So those kind of lead into kind of my tips for recreating life. Fear is always the number one reason that we don't change things, right? We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of disappointing people. We're afraid of making mistakes. We're afraid that things won't work out. We're afraid of the devil that we know is less scary than the devil that we don't know. So that unknown, all these fears keep us trapped in this life, right? And for me, that just felt like a slow suffocation. My soul slowly died every day. And I knew intellectually that I have one life. Like, that's